I still remember the day I sat down across from my dad at the old wooden kitchen table in our house in Chicago. The sun was setting outside, casting long shadows across the room, but inside, the air felt cold. The kind of cold that only exists when you're about to share something big, something that could either make or break everything between you and the one person who's always been the center of your world. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at him, trying to find the right words to say. "Dad," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "I want to start a business." I watched him lower his newspaper, his eyes narrowing as he stared at me. He wasn't angry, not yet. But I could see the flicker of disbelief in his eyes, the same disbelief I had seen so many times growing up. I had always been the dreamer, the one with ideas that seemed impossible, the one who never quite fit into the mold of what he thought I should be. He put down the paper, folded his hands, and leaned back in his chair. "What kind of business?" he asked, his tone flat. I swallowed hard. I had rehearsed this moment in my head 1,000 times, but now that I was here, it felt different. It felt real. "A tech startup," I said, looking him in the eye. "I have an idea for an app that can help small businesses connect with customers in a more personal way. It's innovative. It could really work." For a long moment, my dad didn't speak. He just stared at me, his face unreadable. The silence between us felt like it was stretching on forever, and I could almost hear my own heartbeat thumping in my ears. Finally, he shook his head. "A startup?" he asked, almost with a laugh in his voice. "Do you know how many people have tried and failed at that? Do you know how much money you'll lose before you even see a single dollar back? This is a joke, Emily. A big, expensive joke." His words hit me like a slap to the face. I had been expecting something like this. After all, he had always been the practical one. The one who followed the rules, who kept things safe, who worked at a steady job and saved every penny. But what he didn't understand, what I was desperate for him to see, was that I wasn't him. I didn't want to play it safe. I didn't want to live a life of quiet routine, never taking chances. I clenched my fists, trying to hold back the tears that were threatening to spill over. "I can make it work, Dad," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I believe in this. I know I can do it." But instead of supporting me, he just shook his head again, his expression hardening. "I'm not going to watch you waste your life on something so ridiculous," he said. His voice wasn't angry, it was tired, like he had already given up on me before I even started. "You'll regret this. I can't watch you destroy your future." The words stung, but what hurt even more was the look in his eyes. The disappointment, the disbelief. It wasn't just about the business, it was about everything I had ever wanted to prove to him, to show him that I was capable, that I could do something big. And now, it felt like he wasn't just rejecting my idea, he was rejecting me. I tried to hold it together, but I felt the tears welling up in my eyes. "Dad, please," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Why can't you just trust me? I need your support. I need you to believe in me." He didn't answer. He just stood up and walked out of the room, leaving me sitting there, alone with the weight of his words. I had never felt more defeated in my life. The one person I had always looked to for approval, for guidance, had just crushed my dreams. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, over and over again, trying to make sense of it, trying to understand why my dad couldn't see what I saw. He was the one who had always told me to follow my heart, to chase my dreams. But now, when I finally found the courage to do that, he was the one standing in my way. I woke up early the next morning, my mind racing. I didn't know what to do, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to give up. My dad's words, as painful as they were, only fueled my determination. I didn't care if he didn't believe in me. I would show him. I would prove to him that my dreams were worth something. That I was worth something. I spent the next few days buried in work, researching the startup world, reading everything I could about how to build a business from the ground up. I didn't tell my dad what I was doing. I couldn't bear to face his disappointment again. But inside, something had shifted. I had a fire burning inside me now, something that I couldn't ignore, something that pushed me forward, even when everything else seemed to be falling apart. I started drafting my business plan, reaching out to potential investors, and putting together a pitch. I was determined to make this happen, no matter what. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew there would be setbacks, failures, and moments when I felt like quitting. But I also knew that I couldn't stop.
Not now.
And then, something unexpected happened. I got a call from a prominent venture capital firm in New York. They had seen my idea and were interested in talking more. It was a huge step forward, a validation that my dreams weren't as crazy as my dad had made them out to be. But as I stared at the phone, my heart suddenly sank. I realized that this moment, this victory, wasn't as sweet as I thought it would be. I couldn't share it with my dad. I couldn't hear him say, "I told you so." I hung up the phone and sat there, feeling both elated and empty at the same time. The journey was just beginning, but a part of me felt like I had lost something even more important than the business: my dad's approval. Little did I know that was just the beginning of everything that was about to unfold. I sat at my desk, the bright light of my laptop screen the only thing that cut through the dark of the room. It had been weeks since that conversation with my dad. Weeks of trying to focus, trying to push forward, but his words kept echoing in my head. "It's a joke, Emily. You'll regret it." I had replayed them over and over in my mind, and each time, they hit me just as hard as the first. But deep down, something in me refused to let them define me. I couldn't give up. I wouldn't. I had made my decision. This was my dream, and no matter how much it hurt, I had to follow it. I knew that the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but nothing worth having ever was, right? I took a deep breath and focused on the screen in front of me. My startup idea was still in its early stages, but I had one thing that no one could take away from me: passion. I had poured everything I had into this project, even though it felt like the world, and especially my dad, didn't believe in it. The first few weeks after that conversation were some of the hardest of my life. I tried reaching out to investors, but most of them were either disinterested or didn't respond at all. It felt like I was talking to a wall. No one seemed to care about my idea. I started to doubt myself, wonder if maybe my dad had been right after all. Was I really just chasing a fantasy? Then, out of nowhere, I got an email. It was from a venture capital firm in San Francisco, a big name in the tech world. At first, I thought it was some kind of spam. I almost deleted it, but something told me to take a closer look. When I opened the message, my heart skipped a beat. They were interested in my pitch. They wanted to talk. I felt a mix of excitement and fear rush through me. Could this be real? Was this my shot? I immediately set up a meeting, pouring everything I had into preparing for it. I spent sleepless nights refining my pitch, making sure every detail was perfect. I even practiced in front of the mirror, trying to convince myself that I was capable of doing this. The more I practiced, the more I realized that I had come so far. I had already taken the hardest step, believing in myself. And now I had a chance to prove that belief to the world. The meeting day arrived, and my nerves were at an all-time high. I dressed in the nicest outfit I owned, a simple black dress that I hoped would make me look professional, but still approachable. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I walked into the office building in downtown San Francisco. The sleek glass windows and polished floors only reminded me how out of place I felt, how small I was compared to the giants I was about to face. But I didn't let that stop me. I walked in with my head held high, reminding myself that I deserved to be there just as much as anyone else. The meeting room was bright and modern, with high ceilings and a long, polished table. Across from me sat three of the most intimidating people I had ever met, 2 men and 1 woman. They were well-dressed, confident, and professional in every way. As I began my pitch, I could feel my nerves starting to get the best of me. My hands were trembling slightly, and I had to fight to keep my voice steady. But as I spoke about my idea, I started to feel the spark of belief return. This was my dream, and I wasn't going to let fear take it away from me. The investors listened carefully, nodding along as I explained my app and how it could change the way small businesses connected with customers. When I finished, there was a long silence. I held my breath, waiting for their response, dreading the moment when they would tell me it wasn't enough. But then, the woman across from me smiled. "We're interested," she said simply. "We believe in your vision." The words felt surreal. I had been waiting for rejection, for the same cold response I had gotten from everyone else. But here, in this room, in front of these strangers, I had found something I thought I'd lost: validation. We talked for another hour, discussing the details of the business, the next steps, and what kind of investment they could offer. By the end of the meeting, they had made an offer. It wasn't the biggest amount of money, but it was enough to take my startup to the next level. I was on cloud nine as I left the meeting room. This was it. I had done it. My dream was no longer just a dream. It was real. As I sat in a quiet cafe afterward, sipping my coffee, I let the reality of it all sink in. I had secured the investment. My future was no longer uncertain. It was in my hands. But there was still one thing weighing heavily on me. I couldn't shake the feeling that even though I had won this small battle, my father's disapproval still loomed over me. How would he react when he found out? Would he even care? Or would he continue to see my success as just a fluke, a one-time thing that would eventually fall apart? I couldn't bear to tell him yet. Part of me knew he wouldn't understand. He'd never been a fan of taking risks, and this was the biggest one of my life. But I also knew that this success was mine to claim. It wasn't about him anymore. It was about me, about proving to myself that I could do this, even without his approval. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I wanted to share this moment with him. I wanted him to see what I had accomplished. I wanted him to be proud of me, even if he didn't fully understand it. Maybe, just maybe, he would come around. Maybe he would see that this wasn't just a joke after all. The next few days were a whirlwind. The offer from the investors had set everything into motion. I was scrambling to get paperwork signed, finalize my plans, and prepare for the next steps. But despite all the excitement and busyness, I couldn't shake the thought of my dad. Would he ever come to see me as something more than a disappointment? Would he ever believe in me the way I had always longed for? As I stood on the edge of this new chapter, ready to dive headfirst into the world of entrepreneurship, one question kept gnawing at me. Was this the moment I had been waiting for, or was it just the beginning of something even bigger and more painful than I could have ever imagined? The answer was still unclear, but one thing was for sure: I wasn't going to stop now. Not after everything I had already been through. I had done it. The feeling of securing the investment was still fresh, like a sweet, rare victory that I wanted to hold on to forever. It felt like a dream come true. My phone rang constantly, emails flooded my inbox, and my social media was blowing up with messages of congratulations. But amid all the excitement, there was one thing I couldn't shake: the thought of my dad. I had made it this far, but would he ever understand? Would he ever be proud of me? I decided I had to tell him. I had put it off long enough, thinking that somehow, maybe, the success would be enough to change his mind. But now, with the deal finalized, the reality was setting in. I had made it without his support, and yet that wasn't enough. I still wanted him to see what I had accomplished. I wanted to show him that all of his doubts had been wrong. It wasn't easy. My dad had always been a hard man, someone who believed in practicality over dreams. He worked his whole life to build a steady career, never taking risks, never believing in the get-rich-quick schemes that seemed to populate the world around him. To him, my startup was just another one of those fads, something that would fade away, leaving nothing but disappointment in its wake. But it wasn't just about proving him wrong anymore. It was about finally feeling like I was someone he could be proud of. I called him. My hands trembled as I dialed his number. It wasn't like we talked much. Our conversations were always brief and to the point, usually about something mundane like the weather or work. But today I had to break through that wall. As the phone rang, I could feel the weight of what I was about to say, the nervousness building in my chest like a knot that I couldn't undo. "Hey, Dad," I said when he picked up. My voice felt small, even though I was trying to sound confident. "Can we talk for a minute?" There was a pause on the other end, a slight hesitation. "Sure," he replied, his voice flat. "What's going on?" I took a deep breath. "I wanted to let you know that I got the investment for my startup. The investors are on board, and I'm officially moving forward." There was silence. I could almost hear him processing the words, trying to make sense of them. "What? You're serious?" Yeah, I'm serious, Dad. They believe in the idea. They're backing me up. I waited, holding my breath, wondering if he would finally say something supportive, something that would make me feel like all of this, the struggle, the sleepless nights, the doubts, had been worth it. But instead, there was more silence. Then he spoke, and his voice was colder than I had expected. "I told you this was a bad idea, Emily," he said, his tone sharp, almost angry. "You've made a mistake. This isn't how things work in the real world. You can't just go chasing some idea that sounds good on paper." I felt the words hit me like a slap. I had hoped for a different reaction, but deep down, I knew this was how it would go. He couldn't see it. He couldn't see that my dream wasn't a joke, that I had put everything into making it happen. He didn't understand how much this meant to me. And I felt like I was back to square one, the little girl who had always been told to play it safe, to follow the rules, to never reach too high. "I didn't expect you to get it, Dad," I said quietly, my voice wavering. "But I've made my choice. I'm doing this, and I believe in it." There was a long pause, and for a moment I thought he might say something else. Something that would soften the blow. But then he just sighed. "I guess you'll learn the hard way," he muttered before hanging up. I sat there in silence, staring at my phone. My heart ached. I had hoped, so desperately hoped, that he would be proud of me, that he would see how far I'd come. But I was wrong. Nothing had changed. I wasn't his little girl anymore. I was just someone chasing a dream that he couldn't understand. I spent the next few days in a haze, the weight of the conversation hanging over me. It was hard to focus on the next steps of my business, even though everything was falling into place. I had meetings to attend, plans to make, and connections to nurture. But all of it felt so empty without his support. It wasn't just about the business anymore. It was about proving myself to him, about wanting to show him that I could be successful on my own. As the days passed, the pressure mounted. My startup was growing, and things were moving faster than I had expected. But every time I took a step forward, I felt the sting of my dad's disapproval. It was like a shadow following me, darkening every achievement, every small victory. And I knew that until I could prove him wrong, nothing would ever feel completely right. The turning point came one rainy afternoon when I was sitting in my office, going over some paperwork. My phone buzzed with a new notification, and I glanced at it without thinking. It was a message from one of the investors. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it. "We've decided to increase our offer. We believe in your vision, and we want to make sure you have everything you need to succeed." My mind raced. This was it. This was the kind of support I had been hoping for. It was more than just the money, it was validation. It was the proof that I had made the right choice. But as I sat there, feeling the rush of excitement, something nagged at me. My dad's words echoed in my mind. "You'll regret it." The irony wasn't lost on me. He was wrong. And yet, in that moment, I realized that the one person I wanted to impress, the one person I wanted to make proud, wasn't here. He had walked away from my dream, and I was still trying to chase his approval. The next day, I got a call from my dad. I wasn't sure what to expect. My heart pounded as I picked up the phone. "Emily," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe I was too hard on you." For the first time in a long time, there was a crack in his voice. "I'm sorry. I can see now that you really believe in this. I don't get it, but if it means that much to you, I guess I have to respect it." His words were unexpected, and as much as I wanted to hold on to the anger, the hurt that had built up over the years, I couldn't. In that moment, I realized that maybe, just maybe, he was starting to see me. Maybe the path wasn't as clear for him as it was for me, but he was willing to try. And for the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone in this journey. But as much as I wanted to believe that everything was going to be okay, there was still one thing I couldn't shake. My dad's change of heart came too late. The real test was just beginning, and I knew that no matter what happened next, nothing would be easy. Things started to look up after that phone call with my dad. It wasn't the full support I had hoped for, but it was a start. And maybe that was all I needed to push forward. The investment money was now in the bank, and my startup was growing at a pace I hadn't anticipated. I was living the dream, or at least I thought I was. But as the days passed, the pressure began to weigh heavier. It wasn't just about building the business anymore. It was about making sure it succeeded, not just for me, but for the people who had believed in me. I remember one particular evening, sitting at my desk in my tiny apartment in New York, staring at the numbers on my laptop. They didn't make sense. Everything was growing faster than I could handle, and the reality of running a business hit me hard. I had no experience in this kind of thing, and every decision felt like a risk. There were days when I felt like I was drowning in it all, with no way out. But there was something else, something even more unsettling, gnawing at me. The success. The way people were starting to look at me differently. I could see it in their eyes. Admiration. Even awe. I wasn't just some girl chasing a dream anymore. I was a success story, a symbol of what hard work and determination could do. And while that felt good, it also felt hollow. I hadn't earned it yet. Not in my heart. Not in the place that mattered most to me. My dad. I hadn't heard from him in a few days after our conversation, and I started to wonder if he had really meant what he said. Maybe he just didn't want to fight with me anymore, or maybe he was just waiting for me to fail. I couldn't shake the doubt that lingered in my mind. Was he really proud, or was he just humoring me? The turning point came when I got a call from an old friend, Rachel, who I hadn't talked to in a while. She was one of the few people who truly understood the sacrifices I had made to get to where I was. We had met during my time in college in Boston, and even though we had gone our separate ways after graduation, we kept in touch every now and then. "Hey, Emily." Her voice sounded cheerful, but I could hear the concern in it. "I heard about the investment, and I just wanted to say I'm so proud of you. I know it hasn't been easy, and I know you've been struggling with your dad, but you've made it. You've done what you set out to do. That's huge." I felt a rush of emotion at her words, but then something shifted in me. I hadn't told her about my dad's reaction. She didn't know how much it had hurt. I didn't want to admit it to her either. I had been hiding the pain, pretending like everything was fine, but deep down, I felt a hole in my chest every time I thought about him. "Thanks, Rachel," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It means a lot to hear that from you." We talked for a while, catching up on everything: life, work, and the usual banter about old times. But before we hung up, Rachel said something that I couldn't ignore. "Hey, Emily, I don't know if you've heard, but there's this huge tech conference in San Francisco next month. I think it could be a great opportunity for you. You could meet some investors, network with other entrepreneurs, and really get your name out there. I think it could be a game changer for you." I hadn't even thought about it. The idea of a conference like that seemed so out of reach, so far away from where I was. But Rachel's words stuck with me. She believed in me. She really did. And maybe it was time for me to start believing in myself, too. The thought of going to San Francisco stirred something in me, a mix of excitement and fear. I had never done anything like this before. But the more I thought about it, the more it seemed like the right thing to do. It was a chance to step out of my comfort zone, to prove to myself and to everyone else that I belonged in this world of successful entrepreneurs. I made the decision that night. I would go to the conference. I would take the leap and put myself out there, no matter how terrified I felt. It wasn't just about the business anymore. It was about me, finding my place in the world and showing everyone, including my dad, that I was more than just a dreamer. I was a doer. The next few days were a whirlwind. I booked my flight, arranged my accommodation, and started preparing my pitch. It was all happening so fast, and part of me felt like I was drowning in it, but the other part, the part that was driven by something deeper, something I couldn't explain, kept pushing me forward. I was scared, but I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want anyone to see how uncertain I was. But then, the night before I was supposed to leave, something happened that shook me to my core. My dad called again. It was late, and I had just finished packing when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. I wasn't sure what to expect from him anymore. But something in me told me to pick up. "Emily," he said, his voice soft, almost apologetic. "I know we don't talk much, but I've been thinking a lot about everything. I'm sorry. I've been hard on you. I didn't believe in you, and I should have." My heart stopped. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The words he was saying, they weren't the words I had expected. They weren't the harsh, dismissive tones I had grown used to. Instead, there was something different, something vulnerable. I don't get what you're doing, and I'm still not sure about it, he continued. But I want you to know that I'm proud of you. I see how hard you've worked. And no matter what happens, I'll always be proud to be your father. Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened to him. I had waited for this moment for so long, and now, hearing those words, I couldn't hold back. It wasn't a complete reversal of everything, but it was something. It was a step toward understanding, a bridge between us that had been broken for so long. I love you, Dad, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I just wanted you to see that I could do this. There was a long pause before he spoke again. I see it now, Emily. I see it. I hung up the phone, sitting in the silence of my room, my heart racing. The phone call had been everything I needed, but there was still one thing I had to face: the conference. The next chapter of my journey was about to begin, and I knew that it wouldn't be easy. But as I looked out the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, I felt a sense of hope rise within me. This was just the beginning, and no matter how hard it got, I was ready. The morning after the conference, I woke up with a heavy heart. I hadn't slept much the night before, my mind racing with everything I had seen, heard, and felt. There was so much to process, so much to figure out. My head was spinning with thoughts of how I was going to prove myself, how I was going to make this dream real. I had met so many incredible people, all of them so confident and successful, and I felt like I was still standing at the starting line, unsure if I was ready to even take the first step. The flight back to New York felt longer than it should have. I sat by the window, staring out at the clouds below, lost in my own thoughts. I kept thinking about Alex and what he had said to me. His words echoed in my head. You need to prove that you're serious. I knew he was right. I couldn't keep doubting myself. I had come so far, but the hardest part was still ahead of me. The road to success wasn't going to be easy, and I had to be prepared for the challenges that were coming my way. But as the plane flew over the city, a strange calm washed over me. I had been so focused on proving myself to others that I hadn't stopped to think about proving something to myself. When I landed in New York, I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. I still had no idea what the future held, but one thing was certain. I couldn't back down now. I had worked too hard, fought too many battles, and come too far to give up. I had to keep pushing forward, no matter how difficult it seemed. The next few weeks were a blur. I dove back into my work, reaching out to potential investors and trying to make connections. I worked day and night, pouring my heart and soul into my startup. Every day felt like a new obstacle to overcome, a new challenge to face. But with every setback, I grew stronger. I learned to trust myself, to believe that I had what it took to make this work. And then, one afternoon, something happened that changed everything. I received an email from an investor I had met at the conference. They wanted to schedule a meeting with me. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake. I had barely slept, barely eaten in the past few weeks. My mind was a mess, and I didn't know if I was ready for something like this. But when I saw the name of the investor, I knew this was it. This was the opportunity one had been waiting for. I quickly cleaned myself up, threw on the best outfit I could find, and made my way to the meeting. As I walked into the office, I couldn't help but feel nervous. I was about to meet with someone who could change everything for me, someone who could help turn my dream into a reality. I sat across from the investor, my hands shaking slightly, but I held it together. I shared my story with them, my journey, my vision. I told them about my struggles, about the late nights, the doubts, and the moments when I felt like giving up. And I told them that I wasn't going to stop until I made it. The investor listened intently, nodding along as I spoke. When I finished, there was a long silence. My heart raced in my chest, and I couldn't help but wonder if I had said the wrong thing, if I had messed it all up. But then the investor spoke. "You got something special here," they said. "We believe in you. We believe in your vision. We want to invest in your company." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what to say. I had worked so hard for this moment, but now that it was finally here, I was overwhelmed. It felt like the weight of everything I had been through, all the struggles and sacrifices, had finally been worth it. I had done it. I had made it. I sat there, blinking back tears, trying to hold myself together. But as the investor handed me the contract, everything felt surreal. I signed the papers, and just like that, I had secured the funding I needed to take my startup to the next level. It was a moment I had dreamed of, but I hadn't truly believed it could happen. As I walked out of the office, I couldn't stop smiling. I had done it. I had proven everyone wrong, including my dad. I had made it in a world that had seemed so impossible, so out of reach. And I knew that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would still be tough, but I was ready for it. I had finally found my strength, my confidence, and my purpose. Later that evening, I called my dad. I had been putting it off for weeks, unsure of how to tell him the news. But now, I couldn't wait any longer. I needed him to know that I had done it, that I had succeeded. When he picked up the phone, I could hear the surprise in his voice. "Emily," he asked, "what's going on?" "I did it, Dad," I said, my voice trembling. "I got the investment. They believe in me. I'm going to make it work." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. And then, finally, I heard him speak. I'm proud of you," he said, his voice breaking. "I've always been proud of you." I felt a lump form in my throat. For so long, I had craved his approval, and now, finally, I had it. It was everything I needed to hear, and it was more than enough to make all the struggles worthwhile. As I hung up the phone, a weight lifted off my chest. I had proven to myself and to my dad that I could do this. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. And as I looked to the future, I knew there would be more challenges ahead. But for the first time, I felt ready. I was no longer just a girl with a dream. I was a woman with a purpose that was just beginning to take shape.